Welcome, everyone, to Odds and Ends, Life, Entertainment, Theater, and the Arts. I am Andrew Kozlowski, and with me is my good friend, world-class musician, music producer, and my co-host, Mr. Cool himself, Mr. Clyde Ballard. Hey, Clyde, what's happening?
What's happening, man? How you doing, man? I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, it's hot, man. We're in New York, folks, and it's hot and muggy, and I know a lot of people are waiting for the storm to come up the East Coast. So people are going to be cozy inside tonight.
Yeah, well, we have a cool dude on the show, Mr. Ed Smaldone. I have an immense amount of respect for him.
Oh, yeah.
As a musician, he has a wide range of knowledge. Not only can he compose and conduct classical music, but he can also play contemporary music and jazz. He can do anything.
Yeah, Clyde, it's really, I read this thing today and I thought it was perfect for us to talk about with him. Edward Smaldone has evolved a musical language.
That's right.
That is visceral or instinctive and emotional.
Yes.
As it is intelligent. An accomplishment prompting the American Academy of Arts and Letters to observe that the composer's serious concern with the foundational aspects of musical coherence never conflicts. That is something really heavy to put on a composer, to say that a guy is instinctive and emotional and yet very, very intelligent in everything they do. Very, very special. But of course, we know this guy is very special. He has done some pretty amazing things and won many, many awards, including the Charles Eves Center for the Arts, the Percussive Arts Society, the Yaddo Corporation, the MacDowell Colony Awards. He was the Composer of the Year in 2016 by the Classical Recording Foundation. He received the John Castellini Award.
Yes.
And in 2017, the Distinguished Alumni Award from the University of New York.
That's right. And he was good buddies with Jimmy Heath and Antonio Hart. So he can speak about jazz. He can go anywhere he wants to go. This man knows music inside out. And he's also a PhD.
Yeah, he's a full-time faculty member of Queens College. And he at one point was the director of the school from 2002 to 2016. That's
the Aaron Copland School of Music. Yes.
School of Music, yeah.
Who was born in Brooklyn and is a famous American composer, Appalachian Spring, and Fanfare for the Common Man. They will remain in history as seminal, compositions.
And his music is recorded on the New Focus, CRI, New World, Capstone, Ablaze Records, and Naxos labels. This guy is very special, and I think we're going to have a wonderful time. So let us introduce you a little bit with some music to Mr. Edward Smaldone. Clyde, that's pretty special, isn't it?
It's beautiful. It's wonderful.
Well,
it's magical.
Yes, sir. I'm anxious to get him out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Edward Smaldone.
Yes.
How are we doing, Edward?
Greetings, gentlemen.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay.
Well,
Thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
I am proud to call you a friend.
Indeed.
And we've known each other a long time, my man.
Coming back at you, Clyde. It's been,
Yes.
A lot of work at Flushing Town Hall together, and
that's
between Flushing Town Hall and Queens College, and all kinds of things.
I've been listening to your music a lot, preparing myself for this episode, and I'm quite impressed and astounded with your wide array of musical knowledge. I didn't know you were so profound.
Well, I've been busy.
Okay.
A little bit. Listen, we want to make sure we give the audience a full, well-rounded history of what you were really all about and what shaped maybe your ideas and your mind. So maybe let's talk a little bit about early childhood and where you grew up and what influenced you musically.
Right.
Well,
so, actually, 30 years ago, I was the New York Times actually did an interview, so I'm practiced with this routine.
Oh, very good.
So I was born in a log cabin deep in the woods. No, pretty close.
And the Times published you? I don't believe it.
See that? I grew up on Long Island. I grew up in Wantagh.
Very good.
Okay. Known as the gateway to Jones Beach. We spent a lot of time at the beach as kids. Actually, we went to Point Lookout, but that's a whole other story.
Wow.
And so I grew up in, South Shore, suburban Long Island. The family had moved out from Brooklyn when I was born. I was born in 19... And there's a little breakup in the Zoom right there. But I grew up on the, South Shore of Long Island, suburban. We moved from Brooklyn. My father worked in the city, took the Long Island Railroad every day. And by the time I was about 10 or 12, I started playing the guitar. I taught myself, basically. And joined rock bands. I was in a garage band.
Get out of here.
We weren't actually in a garage. We were in my bedroom on the second floor. So, but, it was a typical suburban, kid's bedroom. 3 beds, one for me and each of my 2 brothers, a set of drums, a couple of amplifiers, a Farfisa organ, and a pile of laundry in the middle. So that's the way we grew up. And, we used to open up the windows and the kids in the neighborhood would sit on the lawn and listen to us play. I played a lot of that stuff for a long time. I was doing ear training. I listened to Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton and the Allman Brothers and people like that, and learned to play what they were playing by ear. So that was my ear training.
What about Chuck Berry? Any Chuck Berry stuff?
I'm not that old. Okay, but we did some Chuck Berry, but we did. He was already on the oldies channel. This was in the late '60s.
Okay.
So
Beatles, definitely, right? Beatles.
Oh yeah, Beatles.
Yeah,
although the Beatles,
too.
I gotta say, more Rolling Stones than Beatles because
them too.
We weren't quite sophisticated enough to really figure out everything that the Beatles were doing. The Rolling Stones were more of a rock band, and we could do that. The Animals.
I was playing "Gimme Shelter" last night. Check
that out. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good. If there's, what Duke Ellington said, there's only 2 kinds of music: the good kind and the other kind. So that's it. So I did that for a while, and then when I was in high school, this was in the 1970s, early 70s. I was in high school, and I was invited to join a band. I had been in several bands. I was invited to join another band, and this was a band of guys that played. That was going to include a trumpet, a saxophone, and a trombone. This was very exciting coming from a rock band.
Sure.
And these guys could all read music, which I could not at that time. So it was, it was my junior year of high school. I joined this band. First thing they did was put a piece of sheet music in front of me. I said, "What's that?" And struggled with that. And then, at a certain point, they said, maybe I should learn how to read music. So I actually, rather than getting guitar lessons, I went and took piano lessons. So lady down the street was a Juilliard grad, and I went to her house and played Bach and Haydn and Mozart.
And your Hannon and your Czerny.
Oh yeah, all those stuff. Scales, all that stuff. Yeah. And I learned how to read music, and that so basically I spent my senior year learning how to read music, and then I applied to Queens College, and they said yes. Who knew? So I really had no experience with classical music, but then I went to Queens, and I got my undergraduate degree at Queens College, where I was introduced to Beethoven and Schoenberg and Stravinsky and Isaac, all at the same time. This mountain of repertoire and information, and just was soaking it all in. And towards the end of that degree, I said, this is really cool. I can write stuff down and give it to some violinist, and they play it, and it sounds better than I imagined it. Let's do some more of this. And so I started writing things, and then I got a master's degree in composition, and then I got a PhD in composition. The PhDs from the CUNY Graduate Center, and during all those years, I studied with George Pearl, Hugo Weisskall, Henry Weinberg, Ralph Shapey. Those were the primary composition people that I studied with. I also was a good friend of Leo Kraft and Saul Berkowitz and Alan Brings, who were also composers on the faculty, and I took classes with all of those people. I also studied analysis with Carl Schachter and Charles Burkhart, who wrote two of the these guys wrote some of the mainstay textbooks that we were using in class and that are still used all over the world.
Now, how did you get to conducting, learning how to conduct? Because that's a whole nother genre.
Well, I studied conducting with Carl Eberl, who was the conductor of the orchestra at Queens College, and Roger Nierenberg. Roger Nierenberg, who actually has had a very, very successful career as a conductor. I spent a semester with 3 or 4 other people that just said, Roger, you're really good at this. Tell us what to do. I also studied some conducting with a guy named Robert White, who's a voice faculty member. And he actually gave me some really terrific advice. So he said that in order to be an effective conductor, you must know your conducting patterns.
Sure.
Then you should just look like the music.
Mm.
And that's, if that is the movements that you make as you express those patterns should communicate something about how you want the thing to be played, not just when you want it to. The pattern tells you when. And if this is all you're doing, you have no idea whether it's loud or soft, you have no idea about the character. But if I do this.
Yes.
Or if I do this.
Pianissimo.
Right. And if I do something, so the way you gesture has a lot to do with it. You can overdo it and make a big career out of it, as Bernstein did.
There's an orchestra. The Orpheus Orchestra claims to be the world's first conductorless orchestra.
Well, they're not the first. They're one of the ones that really made their name at it because orchestras didn't always have a conductor. Until about the early 1800s, orchestras did not have a conductor. The concertmaster might have, picked up his bow and gone, ready? Everybody ready? Waving it, and then we go and bring them into the downbeat, and that was it.
Right.
It was the 19th century that saw the rise of the conductor, and what a really great conductor can do is take on the responsibility of the music, and then the players, it's like they're outsourcing it. They're not really responsible for it. When you play without a conductor, as the Orpheus Ensemble does, they rehearse. Somebody is conducting everything all the time, but it's not the same person. And it's because they've all decided, all right, I'm going to slow this down. And then we look over to the viola for the next cue. And then after he comes in, we're going to listen to everybody pay close attention to the flute because that's going to give us the pickup for where the trombone comes in. And they would sit and work this all out. So they're constantly looking at each other the way that a chamber ensemble works together. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And so they're playing orchestral music with the kind of sensitivity and shared purpose of a chamber ensemble.
Right.
And that's why they're so exciting to listen to, because it's not just one guy up there doing this and making sure everybody comes in the right place.
Well, a conductor is essential in a sense, right? Wouldn't you say? I mean, two conductors conducting the same piece, it would be different. Am I correct?
Oh, sure. If it wasn't different, why would we buy that second performance of the Beethoven symphonies? There's got to be 100, 200 performances of the Beethoven symphonies that have been recorded. Why would anybody want to buy so many? Because each individual is going to perform it a little differently, even though the notes are.
You recorded something with the Royal Danish Academy of Music.
Yes, I had a project a couple of years ago. I wrote a piece called "Beauty Within Arm's Reach." Which was, the idea behind it was that, the instruments are all within arm's reach, as well as the fact that, when you're sitting there, when you're in the world, and even this crazy world we're in right now, you take a look out the window and right there's some really wonderful, beautiful things. So I was trying to celebrate all of that.
Yes. In two movements, am I correct? Two movements, pretty much.
In two movements.
Breathe and sing.
It was breathe, sing, and dance. The sing in the middle is really small. But so there's kind of, two very different moods that are expressed. And so what I did was I have Queen's College, the Aaron Copland School of Music, has an exchange program with the Royal Danish Academy in Copenhagen. Which means that our students at Queen's College can register for courses at Queen's College, get on a plane, go to Copenhagen, and study there.
Beautiful.
And students from Copenhagen can do the same and come to New York. And there have been a bunch of people that have gone both ways, and it works out really nicely. So I've gotten to know some of the faculty at the Royal Danish Academy, as well as some of the students that have come back and forth.
Right.
And there's a wonderful oboe professor there by the name of Max Artved. And then we have a guy on our faculty for a long time named Charles Neidich. He's a wonderful clarinet player. And we were trying to get these two guys together and, teaching the different students and so forth and playing things together. We came up with a project on when Sandy, it was the week that Superstorm Sandy hit.
Yes.
If I recall correctly, the storm was on a Tuesday. Is that right?
I remember that, yes.
Yeah, and it was on a Tuesday night. That morning, all of these Danish people had arrived at JFK. They arrived at JFK. They got to their hotel. The storm came. They were supposed to be at Queens College to rehearse on Wednesday morning. They couldn't go anywhere. There was no electricity in the building, on the campus. It was a nightmare. And in fact, the if you remember that crane that was off the top of a building somewhere in Manhattan, right? That was their hotel. So they went out sightseeing and they tried to come back. This was like on Thursday or Friday. They came back. They couldn't get their instruments out of the hotel. They weren't going to let them back. They were going to have to get on a plane and leave their instruments behind. At the last minute, they got their instruments. They came out to Queens College. We went into the building with no lights and we played a little bit. They played a little bit of a piece by Mozart called the Grand Partita. The Grand Partita is a famous piece that Mozart wrote. It's got two oboes and two bassoons, two clarinets, two basset horns, four horns, and a double bass player. So it's all wind instruments primarily. They played that piece, and we were coming back from lunch, and I said to Max, I should write a piece with that same instrumentation. He said, oh, that's a good idea. You got to be careful. You don't say things like that to a composer. We are so easily encouraged. So I wrote a piece with that same instrumentation and sent it off to him. We played it with some students in Denmark, and then some students from Denmark came to the United States. We played it again at Queens College in Lefrak Hall. They played a concert of the Mozart Grand Partita and my piece. And both of those are on YouTube. There's a live recording that I conducted. I didn't conduct the Mozart. That, yeah. They did the Mozart all by themselves, but I conducted my piece.
Beautiful. And you had about 15 musicians, am I correct? 14 to 15?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did it take for those musicians to execute the piece to your satisfaction? One rehearsal, two rehearsals?
Well, the people that played that day, about a little more than a third of them had already played the piece another time. So there'd already been a whole set of rehearsals, and they performed it in Denmark. Then they came to New York, and then a bunch of new people started. So there was a piece like that with a really strong group of players, 2 or 3 rehearsals is enough to get people to especially with a conductor leading things, because it takes a lot longer to do it as chamber music. With a conductor, I'm taking on some of the responsibility for keeping things on track.
Of course. I know we talked a little bit early on about how you used your ear and in music. And it's strange because a lot of the high school students we work with, we teach that in the singing aspect.
That's right.
We don't want them to read the music. We want them to hear the part first. And then we allow them to look at the music, and we teach them how to read the music. What do you think? Did that help you a little bit when you were starting to compose?
Well, I do think that, one of the things I say to my students all the time is it's all ear training. Everything. Mm-hmm. Everything that you learn about music is ear training, because whether it's learning how to read it off the page, or whether it's learning something about music theory, or it's even learning about the history of music, none of it matters unless it's in your ear. So, when you're on the stand, when you're on when you're playing with other musicians, this is why chamber music is so exciting, because you're playing with other people. You're listening to somebody else. You're reacting to what they're doing. This gets back to that Orpheus versus the conductor. With the conductor, the conductor sends an instruction to the player, and the player sends it back out to the conductor, and that's the end of it. It's the conductor's responsibility to say, no, you're a little too loud. In Orpheus, everybody's responsible for everybody else, and you have to listen in many other different directions. And it's like watching an amazing ensemble play, where you have 5 or 6 people on stage that have done this show 50 times, and they just one thing leads to another, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Beautiful,
certainly is. The training aspect of it, when you went from being a youth who played rock music in a band, like many of us. I mean, you talk about Jones Beach. I remember going into the tunnels and singing.
Yeah. Oh, they sounded great. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We used the acoustics as we were going in there to sing with our friends. But what about the transition to classical music?
Yeah, it was challenging. I mean, at Queens College, I was not getting instrumental lessons. That was not part of the curriculum at that time. Now all of the students get lessons. But at the time, basically, they kind of left us alone, said, you should be studying. And then at the end of the year, we'd come in and given a small jury, a short jury. And what I had a classical guitar that I kept in a box somewhere. And about 3 weeks before that jury, I would take it out and play a couple of pieces and practice them. And I'd go and play for them. And the guy would say, it sounds okay, but you really should be playing more complex music. You're not making all that much. I wasn't studying,
right?
And I was more interested in the piano, and I was more interested in composition, and I was developing. I was learning. I was learning the repertoire. I was listening to music and analyzing it and trying to play it at the piano to understand how it worked. And I was writing pieces. I was experimenting with how to notate things. And put it in front of musicians and have them try to play it. There's an awful lot to learn.
Yes.
What would you say what would you say would be the turning point, or the thing that started to really get you going into the passion? I guess composition is the passion, right?
Yes, and that's my primary focus.
Yeah, where did it turn?
I think it was probably junior or senior year of my undergraduate work, because at that point I'd studied. We have a big curriculum where I'd studied the entire history of music. I had tried to working with a teacher. I was in a class with Alan Brings. Taking a composition class. There was a composition class that was required of undergraduates. And I was taking a course in 20th century theory. So we were, analyzing Schoenberg and Stravinsky and Webern and all these people. And I was listening to a lot of that music and trying to write in that style. I was also working with Henry Weinberg, who analyzed Schoenberg. And I was also analyzed tonal music with Carl Schachter, and I wrote and I've got several people have commented I've got more nerve than brains, so I actually wrote a string quartet. I wrote a 17-minute string quartet. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was going to write something with really high notes and really fast notes and really slow notes and double stops and ponticello and with mutes and without mutes and all these, all kinds of tricks and things. And I got a bunch of my friends, somehow I convinced them to sit there and try to learn it. And we played it. And I can still remember the feeling when I heard those sounds coming back at me for the first time. I was like, wow, this was just incredible. So
like the birthing of a child. Come alive.
That's right. Let's talk about that a minute. Now, let's talk about the minute you decide you're going to compose something.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there saying, I want to include this, and this, are you? Or was there something that moved you emotionally? Right. I mean, one of the descriptions that Clyde and I were talking about, You were described as somebody who is very instinctive, yet emotional, yet very intelligent. That's pretty tough to combine.
Well, I try to, we talked about this a little bit before, heart and brain. There's a concept in a lot of composition that, if a composer is too cerebral, it's at the expense of emotion. And if they're too emotional, then it's not smart enough, and it's on hard on the sleeve, stupid emotion. Now, I believe those two ends of the spectrum actually exist. I'm not going to name names, but there are composers who have made huge careers out of being sentimental melodists with, a wisp of musical material and all emotion. And then there have been people that have had very big, mostly academic careers where the music is intensely complex. And, and if we can somehow understand it, they have failed. Okay, because that's not the point. The point is to sit in awe of the intellect, not to feel anything emotional. I hate both of those.
Right.
I dislike both of those things, those extremes. I'm much more in the middle. Now, I got to tell you, as a result, there are a lot of people listen to my music and think, it's nice, but it's not smart enough. And other people listen to it and say, well, it's okay, but it's a little too smart. What am I supposed to do?
Can't win them all.
No, right.
But as you know, the music, classical music and jazz has always been rubbing off of each other. There are many great jazz musicians like John Lewis, Ron Carter. Even Charlie Parker was known to be carrying around Stravinsky's Firebird suites.
Hey, so, Jimi Heath had a big brain. Jimi Heath was a master orchestrator, a master theoretician. He understood every note that he played meant something. He wasn't just throwing stuff at the wall. But he was able to also bring the heart to it. So, I think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, the kind of music I really like is the music that is spontaneous, that's alive, that's vibrant, that's vivid, that paints a vivid picture, that's got some ear candy that you can hang on to, but it's smart. It also is it's intelligent. It's got a reason for being.
I think when you add those things up, you get the word connect.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's what the most important part of it all is. I mean, look at what's going on today. I mean, my God, what we have learned is that people turn to the arts and music to get through all of these times.
Oh, yeah.
And it's probably the most important drug of our lifetime.
Oh, people have talked, especially at times like when things are as bad as they are, people say, what am I studying music for? Why do I need to sit here and look on a Zoom call to Professor Smaldone and try to get do, re, mi, fa, sol figured out? What's that possibly going to do for the world? Well, it's, we need music now and the arts more than ever, because that's the reason to get out of this. Otherwise, we should just stay home and watch Netflix.
No, you're absolutely right.
You asked something before, Andrew, about how do I start? And this is where I think again there's a connection with my early experiences in music, where it was just making stuff up. It was improvised, and it was not notated. And what I usually do is I sit. I usually know what I'm writing for. I don't just, I know that I'm writing for an orchestra, or I'm writing a concerto, or I'm writing a string quartet, or I'm writing for these three instruments, whatever it is. I know what that is.
Do you ever get to a point where you're sitting at home, you're relaxing, and you just decide, I'm going to write something without
you know what
that?
Happens? No, yeah. You know what happens? I'm lying in bed. I'm really relaxed, and I have no interest in getting out of bed. And then something goes, and it's like, oh, crap, I got to get up and write this down.
That's right. Before you lose it.
I got to write it down before I lose it. I get up out of bed, and then I go downstairs, and my wife comes down 4 hours later and says, what are you doing?
Right.
But what I usually do is I start with an improvisation. Very often I start with a musical idea. It's a melody, it's a chord, it's a melody and a chord, it's a rhythm, it's something. And what I usually do is I take a pencil and a piece of manuscript paper and I write it down. And now that I've been developing these skills for a long time. I'm astounded by a guy like Paul McCartney, who, without that ability, could actually write something that was a testament to his skill as a songwriter. He could come up with something, write the words down, and then the next day he could sing it back perfectly. That's first of all, that's an amazing skill to have that memory, but it's also a skill that he wrote something that was that memorable.
Sure.
If he was writing crappy melodies, they'd be hard to remember. But he wrote such good ones that he could remember them.
And I saw him in Las Vegas a year ago. I went to his concert in Las Vegas, and he played Blackbirds on a ukulele. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. No, he's a phenomenon. I just hate the man.
And self-taught too.
Way too talented. But so what I generally do is I start with an improvisation, an idea, a musical idea. And I think it was Michelangelo whose concept of sculpture was that a sculpture should have the kind of solidarity that you could roll it down a hill and not worry about it. It shouldn't be fussy and frilly and fragile. And I think I really appreciate musical ideas that have a profile, that it's not just something that sounds like something else you wrote, but it sounds completely different, and then it becomes part of this piece, and then it becomes the DNA of that piece.
Yes.
So I'm always looking for that in the improvisation. And sometimes the improvisations come out and I write them down. I go, yeah, that sounds like the same crap I came up with last week. So then it goes in the garbage, and you keep doing it. And when, I always say that when I've got a certain number of pieces of paper on the floor, I'm getting towards something that I'm going to want to keep.
Right.
It's like separating the wheat from the chaff.
I fell in love with your composition called The Heartland.
Oh, the scenes from the Heartland.
I really love that.
Thank you so much. I'm very proud of that one.
Did you compose that on piano or guitar?
No, I composed that on the piano. I don't think I could play it on the piano, but I play the piano well enough to know that, okay, a guy that really does this and practices will be able to do this. It all fits.
Right.
It doesn't, ask him to do anything crazy. That piece was inspired by poetry by a woman named Amy Clampitt. Amy Clampitt was a really phenomenal poet. I met her in 1986 when I was at the Yaddo colony. Yaddo up in Saratoga Springs. It's a gorgeous artist colony, and I met some wonderful composers and writers and all sorts of people. Amy was there. She's passed away, but she became a poet very late in life. She published her first book. I think she was 60 years old or something like that. And a very cerebral, a very complex woman and poet. But she had these wonderful poems that evoked the heartland of this country and the earth and the nature and the people that tried to overcome that nature and so forth. And I just thought that they made some evocative images for the pieces that I was writing. So that's why the piece is called Three Scenes from the Heartland. I wrote it. It was a commission from a dear friend named Donald Pirone, who was also a Queens College graduate and also now on the faculty. And he said, "You know what? We've known each other for a long time, and I like your music. Why don't you write something for me?"
Sure.
I said, "Okay." So I mean, that's another thing is that basically everything I've ever written has been for a particular performance or for a performer, or I've not just sitting down saying, I think I'll write a piece for 12 piccolos and see if anybody wants to play it. I've always got a project so that I always hear my pieces very soon after they've been written, and then that's how you learn everything about them. And then I go back and tweak, and then we move on to the next project.
Now, so many composers today have used technology to aid them, and they're writing classical pieces as well as jazz pieces on computers, Encore, and etc. Do you use that also, or do you write it by hand?
Well, I start by writing everything by hand, but what happens is that pretty soon it's faster to get the ideas down and to manipulate everything if I put it into a computer. So I use Finale.
Finale, yeah, is another one. Yeah,
yeah. I've been using Finale since 1987, so I'm not changing.
Right.
I'm not changing. Well, I can do all the things I need to do. There are things that Finale can do that I don't know how to do, but that's just because I don't let the program write the piece.
Yes.
I mean, it's just a way of guiding what notation is going to go down on the page.
And it gives you a way to check errors too. You can see the whole score in front of you.
That's right. You can see the whole score in front of you. You can also hear it back on the MIDI sounds that they have gotten a lot better. It's pretty lifeless.
It's cheesy.
Everything I send out, somebody says, it sounds like an accordion.
Exactly.
Which is good. I mean, I'm in trouble the first time those cheesy sounds sound better than the real players.
That's right.
Then I'm in trouble.
That's right.
What it does is it allows you to get a sense of pacing. How long has that idea been there? How long have we been waiting for something to change? We talked about the rate of change earlier on.
That's right.
Is that the same thing for too long, or is it not long enough? Have we heard that harmony too many times? What about the high point? Did we hear that? What about the bass note? There's all sorts of things that you can very quickly check by ear without getting too theoretical about it. You just listen and you wait for it to be right, and then you go in and tweak.
Another question I wanted to ask you: you seem to favor mostly semi-acoustic guitars, not solid body guitars. Is that true?
Yes, I would say that's true. I mean, I've got so in addition to my my ES 175 over there, I've got an HD 28 Martin acoustic. I've got a classical guitar, but I also have a Tele.
And Fender Telecaster?
Yeah, I got a Fender Tele.
Oh, that's a classic.
And I've got a Gibson 137, which is a semi-hollow. It's like a 335. It's kind of like a Les Paul turned into a.
Have you ever experimented with a 7-string guitar before?
No, that's one of the things I'd like to do. I play a lot of bass when I play guitar, and that 7th string would be a good thing.
Sure.
Because I don't really need another guitar, and then and then there's the time it's going to take to learn it. I got to say that my days in front of my computer tend to be on a Zoom call or working on one thing or another, and then after a while I just say, okay, I got to get up, and I stand up and I turn, I go play the guitar for 10 minutes, and I come back and I spend a lot of time in this room doing a lot of
Zoom calls, Zoom teaching.
Zoom calls.
Let's talk a little bit about that while we have a chance. Obviously, there's the old adage that somebody who is exceptional at something and then tries to teach it sometimes can be very frustrated with their students' inabilities to see the things that they see.
Right.
And that's always a challenging thing. I think it's a challenging thing for us as I've been educating for many, many years also in theater. And I can't imagine as a composer, you certainly have to have a gift of being able to hear and see things that other people are unable to see. or hear.
Yes.
It's got to get frustrating, I would think.
It is. But I also, I don't have perfect pitch. I'm not really an expert pianist. I would never. I play cocktail piano, and what I say about my cocktail piano, I sound pretty good in a noisy room. So, I would never give a recital of classical music, certainly. But I came to all of this very late. So I know from firsthand experience what it's like to be 17 years old and not have a clue. Mm-hmm. So when I'm teaching those 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds, I'm sympathetic. I was there. I wasn't a kid that grew up, woke up with perfect pitch and started playing the violin as a prodigy at 4 years old and was doing a concerto at 10. And then you get in front of a class and you go, what's the matter with you people? Why can't you do what I'm asking you to do? Because the person has no idea how they ever got to acquire the skills that they have. I can tell you almost to the day when I got most of the skills that I have, and I've had to work for them. So I think I understand how to go about it.
What do you say to a kid that comes up to you now, a gifted kid, a kid has got something, and that gifted kid comes to you and says, okay, I want to do this. This I want to do. What advice do you give a kid like that?
Right. I love that. I've had... I have a good friend named Frank Doyle. He's a music educator. We went to school together. He teaches out in Northport, out on the island. And Frank has sent me a number of students over the years when he finds somebody that is really, really hot, really just can't get enough, can't catch, you say something once and the kid's got it. Yeah. And then, especially when they're interested in composition, he sends them and they study with me. And I've enjoyed those kids enormously, it's not that they're few and far between,
sure.
But, that's a joy because I really think I understand you do this first, then you do this, then you do that. And there's many, many steps, but I know where to start. And when you got a kid that just goes, oh, okay, and just keeps going. It's like, oh, this is easy. Yeah. it's much harder. I thought you were going somewhere else, Andrew. It's much harder when you get a kid who's really talented who comes and says, why do I have to study any of this stuff? I'm already talented. Why, I can already do this stuff. Why do I need this? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's frustrating. Then I want to just smack them.
Right. Now, Ed, you have a new CD or project that's coming out, going to be released soon?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
I had two CDs that have just been released. One's called Double Portrait. Here it is. And this is a CD that I did with another good friend of mine named Douglas Niens. Douglas is a professor out in Cincinnati, and we each contributed a CD's worth of chamber music that was performed by a hot young ensemble of chamber musicians from Cincinnati.
Beautiful.
And that's already out. And then I got another one called Once and Again, which...
that's beautiful. I heard that, man. That's really beautiful.
Thank you. And what I'm so excited about this one is that the Double Portrait is young players that are really digging in, and they're very they play with such precision and brilliance. Right. It's amazing. This one is like the adults. The performers are colleagues that I've known for 30 years.
Sure.
And I'm very excited that there are two unbelievable sopranos that perform on this. One of them is Tony Arnold, who is, if you know about contemporary music, she's like the number one call to do the scariest things imaginable. Yeah. Now, my music
I was going to ask you about that too. Who was a vocalist as well?
Yeah. Tony Arnold's the one that there's a set of songs with harp and flute. And that's Tony Arnold. Those are songs. I took the texts of Monteverdi madrigals and I reset them, which is a way to get around paying a poet any royalties, by the way. And then there's another song cycle on there by another amazing vocalist Susan Narucki, and Susan is out on the West Coast, and I got to know her basically from her from her performances. I actually didn't know either one of these sopranos before we did this project, and it was, it took a little nerve on my part to just not quite pick up the phone. You find them on email and send an email, say, listen, I've got this project, I've got this piece, I'd love to have you perform it. Would you do that? Right. And they both said yes.
Where are these CDs available so we can let our audience know?
Right. Well, I'll give you the links.
Okay.
So, one of the Neon's CD is available on it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes. If you type my name and the words double portrait, this will come up. And then the other one is also we're recording this a little bit just before it's going to be released. It'll be released on August 14th. But it's available on Amazon, on iTunes, on Spotify.
Okay.
It's available all those places. So
we'll certainly put that on our
that'd be great.
Our program site and
I want to also talk about one other thing too. I know you're doing a series of guitar vocal concerts.
Yeah. So I mean, as
that's solo
discussed,
work, just you alone.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I'm actually in a band, kind of. With that friend of mine, Frank Doyle. He's a pianist. And we've played a bunch of places like Grasso's out on Long Island and the Polo Lounge and a couple of other places. And but this coming Sunday, August 9th, I'm going to be giving a Sunday serenade. There's a concert series with that's organized by a bunch of young professional musicians who are dying because of COVID. There's no gigs. Yeah. There's no freelance. So they put together this little series, and every Sunday they give a concert, and there's a GoFundMe button, and the GoFundMe button goes to support the people giving the concerts. I'm donating my concert, and anything that goes in the GoFundMe is going to be spread around to the other players. Because they're the ones that really need it.
Yeah, you must let us know how people can tune into that as well.
That's another thing. We'll need that link, and we can put that on. And that's Sunday, this upcoming Sunday.
That's this coming Sunday, and it's I've been working quite a while ago because I don't play a lot. I mean, I've actually kind of been in a band, as I said, for about the last 8-10 months. But prior to that, for a long time, I did not, I didn't go out playing. For a long time, I played on the week. I made my living as a guitar player, going out and playing in a band. And, people would call the tunes. I worked for Stephen Scott way back in the day.
Stephen Scott Orchestra.
Yep. I was
very famous.
I did a lot of work in the hotels,
weddings,
in New York. Right, a lot of corporate parties. The Plaza Hotel, the Waldorf, the Pierre, the Hilton. That was, that's a lot of fun. That's chamber music. I don't care. I don't care if there's only 3 chords. They have to be the right 3 in the right order at the right time with the right feel, in tune. There's all kinds of things you got to do. So, I was just, but then when I wasn't playing and I was very busy composing, I was also, by the way, the director of the Aaron Copland School of Music for 14 years. From 2002 until 2016. So during that time, I really needed something to do, and my son bought me a loop pedal. So I started playing with the loop pedal. So now with the loop pedal, you can play some changes, hit the loop,
harmonize with yourself.
Now you've got a second guitar player playing with you, and you're not just playing all by yourself.
Great.
And so that makes a big difference, and that's
now,
that's
what
actually
what kind of pedal is that? Who makes that pedal?
This one is a Boss. It's the
Boss. Yeah, Boss does a lot of
it's the
external gear for musicians.
Right. It's the It's the RC3.
RC3.
Really
Okay.
It's a really simple pedal. It doesn't. I can't. I mean, there are contemporary musicians. There are friends of mine. There's a guy named Todd Reynolds. Is a violinist. You should have him on the show.
Give us his number. We'd love to have him.
Named Jessica Myers, and these are 2 string players. They're classically trained string players who also improvise, and they use loop pedals and they create atmosphere, and and that's fine.
Could you give us an example, a minute of what the loop pedal can do right now? Is that possible?
Sure. What I can do with the loop pedal is I can just play some changes. Okay.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful.
So which also means that you can start something. So that tune. Look, Mom, no hands. But it's a marvelous night for a moon dance. Okay. So you can do that, but and then you can add things. But there are contemporary musicians, and now I gotta. So what I really should have done is this for this. Okay. So there are some wonderful contemporary musicians, like people like Todd Reynolds and Jessica Myers, who create, they create things with the loop where they might start with a I don't know if I would keep that. I mean, but that's just but they would build things
and build
one on top
layers.
Of the other, and they would have a lot more processing things where something goes into an echo chamber, something else is on a modulator of some kind, of sound processor. They can do all kinds of things, and then they would improvise on top of that.
Sure.
And they might have a more sophisticated pedal than this. I don't do that sort of stuff. I mean, for my concert music, I want to sit down at a desk and write a piece that live musicians are going to play and make it happen. When I'm using my loop pedal, I'm having fun. I'm playing tunes and playing with my favorite guitar player.
Sure.
Most
I understand that Jimi Hendrix was one of the first guys to really popularize it. It used to be called an Echoplex.
Oh, wow.
Edward, what's on the agenda going forward?
Oh, boy. Well, so the first thing that's on the agenda is catching up with a couple of things that got canceled. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a clarinet concerto for a guy named Soren Philip Brix Hansen, who is a clarinetist in Copenhagen. This is part of that back and forth. Mm-hmm. I like to make friends. And he was a student. He came to Queen's College, studied. He went back and he finished his degree in Copenhagen. And now he is the first clarinetist in the Queen's Wind Orchestra. So the guys with the giant furry hats, you could join, Clyde. You wouldn't need the hat.
I wouldn't need the hat.
You could just be very comfortable.
Yeah.
But it's these guys with the big, and the red suits, and they march.
Wow.
But they're it's like the president's own. It's like the top players, wonderful musicians. And I wrote a concerto for him and that ensemble. That was supposed to be played back in June. Guess what?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So with the pandemic, that didn't happen. And then the following week, I was scheduled to have a piano concerto performed at Columbia Miller Theater at Columbia University with the League ISCM. I'm a board member of the League ISCM, and they were going to perform this piece. I've written both pieces. They're finished. They're all ready to go. But we're just waiting to get back to the world and reschedule that. So that's those.
Yeah.
I also have a a piccolo concerto that I wrote 20 years ago that just got recorded last summer. I went to Brno in the Czech Republic, and we recorded the concerto. It's all been edited and mastered and so forth, and that's going to be coming out on another CD a little later in the fall. And then in the spring, I'm going to be on a sabbatical, and I'm planning to develop a project to, possibly, hopefully, to get those two things performed.
Yeah.
And I've also got plans to do some work in Italy. We have another exchange agreement with the Perugia Conservatory.
Beautiful.
And so I was there last summer teaching. I've done several study abroad courses, taking kids from Queens College over to Italy. And then I got a gig on Sunday for the guitar, and I think we're supposed to play Grasso's on the Labor Day weekend.
Good.
Sounds
You're a busy
pretty
guy,
special.
Man. You got a lot happening.
So, Edward, with all of the young people that we work with, all of us actually, Clyde and I, particularly with the Josephine Foundation, and you, of course, with all the students you're working with at Queens College and so on, one of the things that we always ask our special guests when they come on is if you had to give 3 pieces of career advice to your students, or somebody just came up to you and said, this is something I really would like to do, what would those 3 pieces of advice be?
Well, when I think about, the things that, what was it that really helped me? What were the turning points? I'm reminded of something my mother used to say, which is the nearest helping hand is at the end of your own arm. So you don't, you can't sit around and say, no. You got to make things happen, So you make things happen. If you don't get a gig, make a gig. Hire somebody else for a gig, and then that person will hire you. When I was 20 years old, I started a concert series. We were a bunch of composers from Queens who were writing music. So guess what? We called the ensemble New Music by Queens Composers. It took us a long time to come up with that, let me tell you. And we applied for a couple of grants, and we gave some concerts, and, I wouldn't say that it was it wasn't a major effort, but stuff happened. And then you make connections with musicians, and one thing leads to another. The next piece of information I would give advice I would give somebody is get a rabbi. Now, this is my father used to say this. He says, you can't just go in without knowing anybody. You got to have somebody who's a little farther along than you that can give you advice, and somebody that's got your interest at heart. Someone that's going to really nurture whatever you're doing. And so, 12 years at Catholic school, and the advice my father gives me is get a rabbi.
But very good advice.
It is good advice,
Yes.
But then you got to make sure. Then the other thing is, don't think that the mentor is going to somehow do things for you that you can't do for yourself.
Yeah.
You want to find somebody that's going to give you honest feedback. But a good mentor facilitates. It doesn't just doesn't just knock down all the trees. He points to where the trees are and he says, "Go ahead, you clear the forest."
Absolutely.
So and then be honest and generous with your colleagues, because you never know. I mean, Clyde, we're working together today. This is we've had projects around the edges, but I've never had, nothing but love and respect for you for everything that you've been doing all these years.
And likewise to you.
But we just, you never know when things are going to come around.
That's
when your path is going to cross with somebody and it's going to lead to something else.
And because we've been cool with each other, that's the result that's happening today.
That's right.
You never know.
Yeah. Very important
and by the way, it's not because there was never conflict. I mean, that's sometimes it's like, oh, wait a minute, you need that date, or we got to do this, or we got to do that. Well, everybody's doing what they can. They work things out.
Yeah.
But, your network is incredibly important.
Sure.
So, very, very solid advice for somebody. That's for sure.
I'm trying to follow it myself.
Sure. Yes.
It's great stuff. Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed sharing your wonderful knowledge and your talent with us.
It was a pleasure.
We sure would like to have you come back again after you do some of these things, and we can get an update on this, right? Now, do you have a Facebook page and a
yes.
So maybe you can let people know how they can stay in touch with the things that you're doing.
Well, sure. I mean, I have a Facebook page. You just look for me on Facebook. I've only got one. And I've also got a website. If you just www.edwardsmaldone.com. It's a work in progress. I'm doing it all myself because I'm a cheapskate. But basically, it's like giving people access to all the stuff that's sitting around here, all my recordings.
Well, it's wonderful stuff, and we're gonna put on. We'll make sure that your links for the CDs. We want to make sure everybody gets a chance to hear those wonderful projects. And we wish you all the best. We'll see you soon.
Thanks very much.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Appreciate so much you coming on board. And be safe out there.
Yeah, thank you very much. You guys be well.
Thank you.
Stay well. Brother. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Edward Smaldone. Clyde, Edward is one of those wonderful gems that you get in the music world, who has taken on also being an educator. And he's a very, very gifted, his personality is such that people just are like sponges around him,
Oh, yeah. Well, he's multidimensional. And his talent and understanding of music is immense. And I'm glad he's a friend of mine. And I'm very proud that he would let us come into his world.
It's wonderful stuff, and I'm looking forward to having him back again because there's so much. He's got all these projects that, of course, the pandemic did a lot to cancel a lot of things for all of us.
Yeah,
but it'll be a lot of the one advantage will be that it'll be a wonderful excuse to bring everybody back.
Sure.
After these projects are done. So wonderful, wonderful interview with Edward Smaldone. Folks, stay ahead and advised of all the events by following the Josephine Foundation on our Facebook page and our Instagram account. Once again, a big thanks to our special guest tonight, Mr. Edward Smaldone. And on behalf of my co-host, Mr. Clyde Ballard, our producer, Mr. Gio Vitozzi, and myself, peace, strength, and love until we see you next week on Odds and Ends, Life, Entertainment, Theater, and the Arts. Good night, everybody. Good night, and stay bright. Amen.
This is a tune by the great George Gershwin.
The way you wear your hat, the way you sip your tea, the memory of all that. Oh no, they can't take that away from me. The way you smile just beams, the way you sing off key, the way you haunt my dreams. Oh no, they can't take that away from me. We may never ever meet again on that bumpy road to love. Still I'll always, always keep the memory of the way you hold your knife, the way we dance till free, the way you changed my life. Oh no, they can't take that away from me. They can't take that away from me. The way you hold your knife, the way we dance till 3, the way you change my life. Oh no, they can't take that away from me. They can't take that away from. They can't take that away from